I'm not sure how many journal entries I've made so far, but I know the last one I was going to number them, and so I could kind of remember, but I've been giving them each one like a little title for my own recollection, and just a couple thoughts on that. You know, I've started this process of making my journal, and this is live, of course, and the things that I'm putting in my journal are the things that I'm working on right now. There's a poem, you know, it says, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one walk with me than merely show me the way. For the eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but example always clear. The best of all the preachers are the ones who live their creeds. For to see good put in action, that's what everybody needs. So, I'm putting good in action right now. And I'm trying to exemplify the way that I found most effective, and the way that I'm still learning, and the way that I'm exploring, as so should you. And if you're not, start immediately. I'm gonna just show you a couple of things, you know, that I've discovered and invented, and methods, well, at least a method I want to, method of meditation. I want to go over that. But in all this, a person has to have a willing mind. And the ones who we admire most are the ones who are of a willing mind. By willing, I mean willing to die to the old and live in the new. When I was in undergraduate school, I went in to see one of my professors, and there was a picture frame on a wall with writing inside of it. Said, "We the willing, led by the unknowing, have been doing so much." Let's see, we the willing, led by the unknowing, have been doing so much with so little that we are now qualified to do almost anything with nothing. So we the willing, led by the unknowing, have been doing so much for so long with so little that we are now qualified to do almost anything with nothing. So the key components that I'm you know, rehearsing in my in the cultivation of my own heart and life and spirit and mind and consciousness, and hopefully unconsciousness, is starts for me with contemplation and meditation, of course. And so what I want to point out is this is how I presently meditate. Now I've known about meditation for a long time, and I practice meditation in the sense that I let myself be still and open to anything that emerges from within, and then don't necessarily try to push my thoughts, but try to just let my thoughts be and bring them forward, and bring forth what is within. You know, as again I mentioned, I know last time, the Gospel of Thomas rendition of what Jesus said that he wrote down, and that is if what you if what you bring forth will what you bring into being or what you bring forth will save you. But what you do not bring forth, and then the way they break it down in the actual language of the day is with a rhythm, kind of. So it's like a precept and then a precept on top of that precept. But I'm not quoting it exactly the way that they said it. But that which you do not bring forth will destroy you. And so I don't know sports going out there, but I'm just going to try to finish this real quick. So let me what sport say? Okay, well, anyway, this is I come across this on Paul Chek, that I've started watching some of his stuff, and he says he showed somebody on a program how to meditate, and I find this as I'm finding a lot of what he says very directional for me and helpful. And you know, he's way advanced. If you want to listen to actually an expert in many fields, he's a very developed person, and he's earned my trust. I have a synchronicity with him. Anyway, so he says in a place, I can't remember if he says dominant hand or what, but with the way that I do it, you know, he said place one hand, the most settling hand or something on your heart that makes your heart feel most settled. That's what he said, but I switch it up. I do this hand and I do this hand, because it's important for every person to find their own way and to exercise imagination and invent. You know, you're the inventor and the creator of your life. Don't ever lose that freedom to invent and create. And that's how you die to the old and are born again to the new. There's a lot of ways this stuff works out, but we're talking feelings, and we're talking resonance and frequency of spirit and soul and mind and body, because it's all connected. Like I said, you know, they've come to understand now that the heart has its own brain, and just like if you ever, hopefully you don't, but I mean, I did when I was a kid, next door to where my aunt and uncle lived, you know, chopping the heads off of chickens to butcher them, to eat them, to skin them and defeather them and all that kind of stuff. Well, they chop the head off, and the chicken would be running around just like and that's how they have a saying now, you're running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Okay, well, see, their body is working, and there is no brain attached to their body, and their body's still moving and so, you know, just on a personal note, I launched my own campaign with my learning for my guitar. I call it Headless Chicken campaign. And then my buddy Tim, I told my buddy Tim about it. He said HCC and a question mark. And I said, well, that's a good acronym. HCC, Headless Chicken Campaign. And this is my own invention. And the reason being is I gotta want to learn to play the guitar by constant repetition of finger placements, and it's constant repetition until I can do it like Paul Chek says, you know, drunk, high, or stoned, or half knocked out, because people, you know, have been seen, like for example, boxing after they've already been knocked out. The guy that lived here said that he got knocked out on his feet before, and he's still boxing. He don't have any recollection of what he did when he got knocked out, but he was still boxing. And so you see, however it works, whether the memory is in the muscle, or whether the memory is in some lower region of the brain, or at the brain stem or whatever it is. This metaphor of the Headless Chicken campaign is my personal campaign right now. I want to practice my guitar so much. Right now I'm learning like going from chord G to D to A minor to C. Okay, and I'm trying to make those transitions, and then now I have a metronome, and I'm trying to be able to do it on time. It is very nerve-wracking. So, like for example, today what I did is I started meditating to prepare my mind, and so I took Paul Chek's idea and then remolded it for my own feeling and spirit. And so what I do is I put my hand on my heart and see and it's meditation. Breathing is a big part of meditation. I won't go into all that why, but it is. And look, this is just a common fact. If you're anxious or something, they say breathe. Nobody's going to disagree with the importance of breath work. And but when you combine the breath work with adoration and appreciation for God and life and source, then you enter a spiritual dimension of the heart, and this is the most important place a person can ever go, because your heart is going to be what saves you. That's an important concept to understand. Your heart is going to be what saves you in many ways. Saves you from the catastrophes, because your intuition will direct you, and that comes from your heart. And these are metaphors, of course. It might really come from your actual heart, but whether it comes from your heart or your brain or a consciousness that is outside of you speaking to you, or whatever it is, whatever it is, we at least have metaphor to point to what it is. Right? Because it is something. And like, for example, they say, God is that which there is no other. God is the one that there is no other. Everything comes from God. Everything. Okay, this is our understanding. And if you believe in God, consciousness, well, that's what it is, and that's what God is. God is the source of all things. God is the source of both evil and good. Right? Yeah, God is the source of everything. Everything happens within God. We can kind of anthropomorphize it, like saying within God's mind. Well, God's mind is in everything. Everything, everybody that has consciousness is part of God. And the whole, the tenets of most religions is that God, and by definition, is everywhere at once. Right? Everywhere at once. He knows everything. Nothing is hidden. God knows everything. Is everywhere at once, and is all powerful. Okay. Anyway, that being said, this is how you do it. Put your hand on your heart, and on the inhale, you breathe in God's life, God's source, the air that we breathe. You know, we can't live without it. You breathe God in, and then when you exhale, you say, I give God's love to all living beings. I give God's love to all living beings. It means everybody and everything. And you just let God's love flow out of you. Okay, in a spiritual practice. Okay? In a spiritual practice, we call this, meditation. All right? And it's directing your life forces. Now, what I do, and because, and this is again, my own modifications, anything anybody I've ever seen do, but this is the way I do it because this is real for in my mind, and every person like you have to be directed, by your own imagination, by your own mind, by your own inspiration. The person that you are destined to become in full totality, or however everything works, all right, is buried within, and you acknowledge that, and you acknowledge that God is a source, and you bring it out. You bring forth that which will save you. This goes from the little stuff to the big stuff. So, like this is the way I do it. Okay, breathe in, and I hold it because I stay in the place that I breathe into for a while. And that's how I have to dwell there. And then when I exhale, I stay there for a while. And I keep pushing all my breath out. And I keep pushing out until there is nothing in there. And I stay with it for a while. And then, in a kind of an easy manner, when I know inwardly it's time, that I inhale God's life. And once again, I breathe out thinking, I give God's love to all living beings. And in that way, the channel of love becomes more a bigger pipeline. Well, what do you call meditation? Okay, so I go like this. I'm thinking in, and I expand my lungs as much air as I can pull in them. Even take another big breath, and then exhale it out. Give God's love to all living beings. I give God's love to all living beings. Of course, I'm not saying it in real life. I'm saying it because I'm thinking it. And sometimes I say it. I exhale, and I push all the air out. And I go down deep. Right. So when you're going through the process of breathing, your mind works in coherence with that, and your heart becomes aligned with that, and you become single-minded. And that's my lesson that I want to put on record today. And, I think about different things in that process of meditation, but it's all upon the wave of breath, and emptying, and then breathing in life once again, and then emptying, and then breathing in life once again. Oh, that would be that.